Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us tonight in conversation with Mark O'Neill. It is my pleasure to welcome you to check out this artwork, dive into Mark's process, and thanks so much for taking the time. I'm Amy Regan from Seesaw Art here in Manchester, New Hampshire. Mark's work is included in our current exhibition, which I've entitled Distinct Fragments. It's on view until July 27th. So come on down to the gallery, check it out, or check it out online. I will pop a link into the chat so we can check it out from wherever we are. But without further ado, it is my distinct pleasure to introduce Mark O'Neill. Mark was born in 1961 in Burlington, Iowa, and is a printmaker, currently living in Newport, New Hampshire. He combines technology, pre-press, and hand printing techniques, non-traditional halftone separation methods to create visually striking prints. His prints are charged with a painterly surface generated by carefully selecting photographic imagery, colors, and ink densities. Mark's non-representational work, influenced by nature, captures nature's intricate patterns through printmaking and color theory. Mark believes art is to be experienced personally and interpreted uniquely. His artistic endeavors seek to facilitate introspection and unveil the inherent beauty of the natural world without explicitly depicting it. His art is a celebration of form and color, consciously avoiding relation and instead embracing an ode to a shared and universal ethos through a formalistic means. This is what Mark sees when he closes his eyes. I love that as a description for your work. I swear I read it before I read it out loud. That is so beautiful. Mark, welcome, welcome, welcome. Can you tell us a little bit or a lot of it about the work that patrons can expect to see when they visit the gallery?
So the set of prints and bits of prints, and I do want to say that as we move through talking about this, you and we didn't collaborate on the whole fragments thing, did we?
We didn't know what that came out organically. Yeah. And I really rang my hands, and my co-collaborator and husband, Devin, who's on the call, can attest to this. It's so tough to name a show, and you really hope that the meaning comes through. And I kind of keep a running list of ideas. I went to a critique and I put everybody's work on the wall and took ideas. And like, just at the end of it, I was like, it's Distinct Fragments, because it's a very abstract show. You can see examples of the other artists behind me. And that is just honestly what organically came out of me. You probably sent me all the materials and everything beforehand, but I probably didn't look at them. I know I didn't look at them until the very last moment, which is as tends to happen. So
well, you are a very busy person, right? And
aren't we all?
Accolades, you don't talk much. I know I've watched a few of these, and you don't talk much about Seesaw at the time, but y'all won an award not too long ago about, what was it, best small gallery space in New Hampshire?
Yes.
Right?
Yes, yeah, one of the top four gallery spaces in New Hampshire. And for anybody who doesn't know, I rent an art studio space as exhibition, so it's about 120 square feet that I have physical space, which is tough to find for gallery, but Mark's right, it does keep me busy. I'm doing monthly exhibitions and having a lot of fun, so thank you for that.
But the salon style, right? The size of the space really lends itself toward a salon style, and, acknowledging Drew and Dennis,
yes,
right? Yep. It was really great at the opening to be able to meet them and talk with them about their work. And, folks, you should go to these openings because they're just fantastic. But so about my work, right, that's in the show now, okay? I think that, my work really even though it is non-representational, it does have a source in my life, from my life, right? Mm-hmm. Every morning I have a little dog, and every morning we go for a walk along the rail trail, which is like a stone's throw. It's just down the hill from my house. And I take my phone, which has, my gosh, the age we live in, right? It has a camera in it. And so I walk along and I take photographs, the sky, the river, moss, tree bark, pretty much anything natural. And I actually have done a bit of work from the rusted bridge trestles, railroad trestles that we get to cross. But I take those images, right, and curate them, reduce them to an essence, if you will, and make the prints. But I think that, honestly, this particular series, really, the photographs for them were all taken at end of February through April, early April, right? So it's like winter is going away, spring is waking, nature's just all vibrant and full of energy at that time, right?
Yeah.
And I think that so you could say the theme, right, for all of this is spring awakening. Okay.
Yeah, if you were going to kind of think about it on like a timeline, and that's one of the most exciting things about this show specifically is everything that's behind me, and all but 2 pieces by Dennis were all created between January and July of this year. So there is just an incredible output from all 3 artists, and just knowing a little bit of your history, getting everything set up, which we can get into when we talk about studio. But I just kind of like, you are just working, and that's one of the things that keeps me going, is because I'm like, I know my artists are out there cranking it out. I gotta make sure to represent them, and that's very rare that it's all such fresh work. One question I had was, when you're taking the images, do you obviously, do you zoom in camera? I'm an old photographer, so you can like tell my technical questions. So will you tend to take an abstract in camera and then maybe zoom in after it while you're post-processing? Or are you taking a larger shot and then zooming in once you get it back into the studio?
That is a very good question. And I have a very good answer. It depends.
Great.
So I do a combination of as macro as I can get with my iPhone, right? For things like moss and tree bark and dirt and whatnot. But when it comes to the cloud work that I do, when it comes to the landscape type stuff, the trees specifically, and the river, water. I have a thing about water, hence clouds and rivers and lakes, I guess. But what I'll do is I'll take, and when I look at, say, the skyline, right, and I see a specific cloud, I'll probably take like 5 different pictures, everything from one that's zoomed out to one that's zoomed in. And then when I drop those into my editing program, I zoom in and zoom out, change the resolution, scale, everything while I work on them there. And from that, then once I feel like I have the appropriate scale that I want to do my overlays, which we'll talk about, I'm sure, I then say, okay, we're good to go. And that's when the real work goes, right? There's a lot of curation before I even really start to, what I'll say, make things, right?
Definitely.
I guess you could say I'm making stuff during the curation process, but picking.
You're sort of editing in a way, and you're at such volumes that it's incredible to me. I mean, just the amount of images that you're working with, or just the amount of images that are potentially ready to be made into prints. Like, you'll be busy forever and ever and ever and ever, which is amazing.
Well, and the problem is I end up with favorites, right? And I tend to reuse them use like part of, say I do a 6-color print. I might say, ooh, well, you know what? Screen number 4 would fit really nice in here, right?
Yeah.
So I've developed this rather complicated system of keeping track of the prints and the screens, because I keep all the transparency I make, because I'm cheap. I don't want to have to spend money on the film again, right? So the idea is that I uh, have those transparencies, and I can just say, oh, I want number 4 through and 5
Hmm.
from image 437, right?
Yes.
So I pull those 2 out and I burn 2 new screens and I incorporate them. But the cool thing is I can test my theory in software before I actually make the screens and commit.
That's amazing. Yeah, so I think that's a good time to tell us about what this process looks like. So you had a lovely walk with Lucky,
I,
and you got probably 1,000 photos from one day.
I've gotten to the point where I really try to limit myself.
You're like, okay, what's the essence of July 23rd?
Exactly, right? Ooh, that moss is really awesome right now in the light, right?
For sure.
The green is really jumping. Um, so yeah, so I'm trying to limit the number of pictures that I take. So what I do is I take those pictures. We already talked about the curation aspect of it, right? And then I dump them into a photo editing application, and I essentially start to think about what I want the final image to be,
Mhm.
to look like. And I start playing around and noodling with the photographic image. Okay. And I'll take a single picture and I'll end up with like 30 different, I'm going to call it versions of that
Mhm.
picture, right? They're probably like just the reds, for example, or just the blues. Okay. And then what I'll do is I'll convert those all to black and I'll export them to another software package, and I'll convert those to vector graphics. Okay. And the nice thing about bitmap graphics are really huge, right? And they're hard to edit basically at the level that I want to edit them. And so I convert those to vector images and I put them in another software package. And that's where I really start to play with how these different images, okay, layers, if you will,
Mhm.
interact with each other, okay, and how I can force them to interact the way that I want them to, right? And and then once I kind of do that, I've discovered that I actually have a palette that I really like.
Mm.
For the longest time, I thought, nope, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to use whatever colors I want. Well, it turns out that I really like yellows, magentas, blues.
And
And
it
so,
brings a consistency too to the series. You know, like when you have that consistent color,
mhm,
I think that
mhm.
that's a really interesting way to sort of show the differences also.
Absolutely, absolutely. And the wonderful thing about what I'm doing, I mean, if we take that the image that you're showing there, More Blissness, Please, I think that's the title. Yep. Okay. I'm not really good with titles. I prefer numbers. That's 47, man.
It probably is.
The idea is that I can take that image, and because I have the screens, I can change that. If I print those, if I had printed, or if I wanted to, I could print those yellows and oranges and just completely flip this image. I could use blue for that yellow, for example, a real nice azure blue, right? And it completely, just doing that would completely change that image, right?
Definitely.
Um, that's one of the things that I play with. So back to the process, because I love the process. um, so once I have my colors picked and my image basically separated and built in my software package, right? I then print out transparencies, which are really exactly that. They are large. You probably can't see on this is
A
not a good,
little bit. We can kind of see a little bit. And we're so lucky tonight. Mark's joining us live from his studio. So we get to really see behind the scenes here.
here we go. This is a better one. You can see it's transparent, but there's all that black stuff on there, right?
Mhm.
So what I do is I take a silk screen that I have washed, waited a day for it to dry, coated it with emulsion, waited a day for it to dry, and then I put it on my light box. I built a light box that uses UV light, and I put that transparency on the glass and set my screen on top, weight it down, and then I expose it. 8.7 seconds currently as my emulsion.
In the process.
It's the fastest thing that happens, Amy. It's like, whoo, how'd that go? I can play with that timing depending on, like, if I have real tiny dots that I'm not getting at that time, I can back it off 0.2 of a second and get better resolution that way. So I get to play with that. There's some fun there. But once I've made expose the screen, then I go into my wet room. My studio's everywhere, by the way, right? It's outside because I'm making decisions when I'm taking the photographs, right? It's on my sofa, right? While I'm doing all the computer stuff, right?
Yes.
Sometimes it's up here in the studio because I've got my little jukebox that I can, TV that I can play all our music through. And then there's the washout basin in an old bathroom upstairs that I've converted to a washout room. And then there's this room, which is where the magic happens. Not magic happens everywhere. This is where I do the printing, which is part of the magic, right? And so I've exposed the screen. I take it into that wet room I mentioned, and I wash it. And then I wait a day, right? You're kind of getting the idea here that it's like there's like average of 3 days preparation, right?
Yes.
4 if you count. I just washed the screens because once you use them, you have to wash them to get rid of the old emulsion. Those have to dry a day too. So from dirty screen to I'm ready to print something, 4 days. Okay.
Wow. Yeah.
4 days, 8.7 seconds. And then while all that drying is happening, I'm either, I'm often listening to music or playing Xbox or reading, but I'm going to make everyone dizzy. I mix my own ink. So
I love seeing this. Yeah.
If I have a color like that yellow in More Blissness, Please, that's a fresh yellow that I mixed specifically for this print, right? So I'll use that dry time to do things, mix prints. I'll also work on other images, right? And by gosh, by golly, when everything's finally dry, I get to print, right? And that's really easy. You take the screen, you register it, which is easy or hard, depending on what you think about it. I've come up with a new technique since you were here that.
Oh, I love that. Yeah.
There's an image on the back. That's the first image that I printed using that, the blue and orange one.
Yes.
And it is perfect. So I'm really happy. Yes. But anyway, get the registration, tape off where you don't want ink to go through, because all that black right there, that in this one, what I say, oh, I didn't get it with this. I'm going to say that is a blue. I haven't decided exactly which blue, probably the one that's in the image hanging on the wall. But that black is what washes out from the emulsion, okay, because it didn't get hardened by the light, right? And so I tape off everything around it, like all the registration marks, because I don't want those on my print, right? But I need them so I can do the registration. And so I tape that off, put usually about 3 tablespoons of ink across one end of it. I have a really big squeegee, which is in the other room, but when you say squeegee, that's exactly what it is. It's a wooden or metal handle with different densities of rubber, right? And
Yeah.
when you drag it across the screen with ink in front of it, it presses the ink through the whole the openings in the screen to the paper, right? And you know, as a bit, and so you do that once for every color. So if I do a 10 color print, right, I squeegee it and then I put it in my drying rack. And depending on the humidity, maybe I'll print a second color that day, or maybe I won't print until tomorrow.
Wow.
Right.
Yeah.
So sometimes a 10 color print will take 14 days.
That's amazing. Yeah.
Sometimes it'll take only 7, right? It depends. But, so that's the cool thing. Did anyone have any questions about that? Happy to have this be, a dialogue.
Sure. Yeah. Anyone with any questions, either unmute yourself or raise your hand or pop them in the chat, whatever you're comfortable with. What I have a fun time thinking about is just the pure amount of manipulation that's going on with each print to get like just that tiny little bit of amount of paint on the paper. It's so beautiful. And they are so expertly handcrafted. I hesitate to say handcrafted, but when Mark talks about a painterly piece of work, that's definitely what this is. The way that you've presented them, specifically in this show, there's no glass or plexi in front of them, so you get to enjoy them as a traditional painting. I'm looking ahead forward because I have one right in front of me and it's beautiful. And they've been matted just a little bit and you can see the edges. And they really are like one of one unique pieces, and they are just so beautiful because you can imagine this is Momentary Blissness, and it's a 10 color stereograph. So any amount of oopsies or what is that, or there's a little imperfection in all of those 10 screens could have made it go into a completely different direction than what you were seeking to get. And I just am like so blown away by the craftsmanship in this work. And when Mark and I worked together for a juried show at Keene State College in the early winter this year, and I had juried everything in by checking out slides and checking a slide deck online and looking at the work, and it resonated with me, through the computer screen. But as soon as I saw it in person, I was just like, wowie zowie. Like, this is something that I don't think that I've seen before, and something that was just like, so, like I said, expertly crafted. And that is one of the things whenever I'm looking for artists to show, that is where I start off first. Is it is it highest quality? And these really certainly are. And you take that to such an amazing degree. And just the amount of like cataloging and remembering and everything can kind of go through here. Like, even just working with some of the prints that we have, I sort of had to make sure, because there's no way you can actually really tell them apart, but documenting them, like, I didn't want to get it messy at all or have to have a frustration headache trying to like look at these and document them like as the curator. So I really kind of felt like that movement of information, and like, how am I going to keep them all in the same stack and keep them in the same way. When you check out Mark's landing page at seesaw.gallery, you can kind of see how all of the prints that we have that are matted kind of, they came all in the same color ways. They came from Mark to me like that. I was not going to, bring them into any other way. And what's been really fun for me too, if I can keep chatting just for fun, is looking at the work and trying to represent the work, doing some social media posts with it. With the other paintings, I can say, okay, this reddish one by Dennis, and then I've got this large one up here that has very like differentiating factors. I know the names of those pieces. With your work, Mark, it has really been fun for me to think so abstractly to make sure that I'm talking about the piece that I think that I'm talking about when representing it. So I'm like, okay, this one has like orange here. And I can't explain that in any other way except for looking at it side by side, putting in where I'm putting it in, and then making sure that it's Momentary Blissness 7 or whatever the title is. And that has been really fun for me to think in a way that you kind of like it, you can't talk about it with words. It's just a visual thing. And I love that so much. It really has been a joy. I think that's such a really interesting factor about this work and how it tosses you into like a non-verbal communication so quickly. It's really incredible to me.
And that is my thesis and goal, right? Um, I keep a little art diary for myself, right? And a few days ago, I wrote something like, "This summer, you will stop titling paintings." I call my prints paintings because they are one-offs,
Yeah.
and
Yes.
you know,
Yeah.
even though they are stenciled, right? I still call them paintings.
Yes.
But you really actually just so totally nailed what I'm after here. Is, there's a reason that I'd prefer not to title things. There's a reason that
Mhm.
I avoid a narrative, right? Because it so quickly guides your imagination, consciously or subconsciously, right?
So true.
Which kind of, takes away from the visual impact of what I've made,
Yes,
right?
definitely.
That if you're in a position where you have to approach it purely on, the forms, the color, and there is composition that goes on in these. You might not recognize it right away, but in a formalistic manner, there is composition.
Definitely.
And I think that's one of the really great things about non-representational work. Notice I didn't say abstract, right? But you know what I'm talking
Yes,
about.
for sure.
It is that balance, right? And finding that balance in these formalistic elements, right? The color, the shapes, the lines,
Mhm.
if you will, etc., that really make a piece of artwork come together.
Definitely. And I can picture no titles, honestly, like untitled number 100,000 or something like this. Or, I mean, and I love that thinking about titles because I think about titles all the time. I'm a secret archivist here at the gallery. Like, where's the information? I need to know what it is. And it really does drive the viewer's experience because you look at a piece like this. We have 4 large pieces by Mark, and that's a really beautiful snippet of it. Your brain instantly says, well, what's going on here? How can I talk about this? And where did this come from? Where does this go to? And I had some artists in the gallery on Sunday who were just so got it and were so dived in and were spending so much time really, looking and looking and looking and seeing and thinking. And they're just so striking in that way. And I love that it is intentionally that that it is about the act of looking, it's about the act of feeling. And I'm sure you are trying to convey something, but it's not so over the head. And I really love that idea. Like, you could do the date that photo was taken or something like this, or literally like untitled, but that might even be like too much direction. And then I love like seeing patrons engagement. I always have like a three sentence thing about each artist. So I tell them about your walks with Lucky, and where it may have been like in a way not like maybe a little too abstract for some patrons, they so get it. They're like, okay, maybe this is water, or maybe this is some of the rust, or maybe, because then once they get a little kernel of what it could be, and
Mhm.
we all understand like abstract photography, then that's where they can really enjoy the craftsmanship and the painterly aspects of these artworks and kind of let it, yeah.
It
Because
all
we want to
comes,
know what they are, like
yeah, exactly. It
what
all
we
comes
do.
back to that the source, if you will, right? And
Yes.
that is nature,
Yes.
right? There's a complexity going on out there that is here,
Yes,
right?
definitely. Yep, I love
And
that.
and I try to capture that without, as you said, hitting people over the head with it.
Definitely. Definitely. It kind of gets to be its own world, but it is of our world in its own world through color.
Yes.
Which is such a fun exploration. I just love
Love
that so
color.
much. Excellent. Yeah, this is the fourth piece that we have. Still water, which I'm sure you're like, I don't want to have any titles at all. Totally fine.
So there's a story behind that one. That's actually a photograph of the Sugar River when the ice flows were breaking up.
Oh wow.
So
Yeah.
that one actually is from, I think I printed it end of January, right?
Yeah.
Maybe early February. But
Yes. Just knowing your work, sometimes I see tree bark in this too, because I'm trying to like decode it or whatever, but I definitely see like I think about water sometimes like there's like peaks and valleys and almost like one plane, and I see that like one plane in the red in this, and I feel that movement so much. It's so different than something like this.
I've been through, I'll call it a very rapid iteration in what I'm doing, simply because I have like 40 years of pent up thinking about this. We didn't really talk about that, but that's okay. I basically having the opportunity finally to just start to put these thoughts to paper has been wonderful, right? And my lovely wife has been, I'm going to go with hyper supportive because yeah. Yeah,
Definitely.
you were up in the studio all morning. She doesn't say that, but I think that, right? And she's like, so what'd you do today? And it's just been really awesome to be able to do that. Of course, I get to ask her that too, so
Yes.
it's all good, right? But yeah, it's that whole principle of being able to take, and I think that to a degree, all artists, right, do this, and that is they take the temporal and the visual and the auditory information that we're bombarded with on a daily basis, and they transform that, right?
Yeah.
And that's what's happening here, right? Only I tend to actually be a fairly consistent. I like the word consistent, right? In person, and so pretty quiet about things.
So one of the things that is important to your practice is thinking about sustainability. And you do that through, I'm sure, maybe the papers that you're using, but also the ink that you're using. And some of the smaller works that we have, were definitely sort of informed by that. So can you tell us a little bit about your thinking there?
Absolutely. So real quick, the air quote problem with printmaking and air quote is that you can be caught in this trap where you're using a lot of toxic, essentially to yourself, but often to the environment, bits of chemistry, etc. Right? And so I am very eco-friendly in that I use water-based inks, right? There's no petroleum products in anything that I use. Well, other than the rubber and the squeegee, probably. But so water-based, the emotion. I live in an 1848 Greek revival home here in Newport, and I have a septic system, right? Well, guess where I want to be eco-friendly, partially because I want to be good to my septic system, but at the end result, being good to my septic system, I'm being good to everything else, right? Because I live above the Sugar River. I don't need, what would be the right word? I'll use the word effluence from nasty bits of stuff trickling down through the ground to get to the stream. I use cotton rag paper only. And for these fragments, right, these are upcycled from, we talked a little bit, actually, bless you, you did, a little bit about the precision and whatnot. And if I typically only do 3 prints. I'll do a test print, I'll do an artist proof, and then I'll do the final one of one, right?
Yes.
Somewhere along the way, so if I'm doing a 10 color print, I start out with like 6 prints because I know something bad's going to happen along the way. I'm a fuzzy guy. My beard hairs fall into the ink under the screen, and I print over them and I pull it out and I go, well, that's not good. Right?
Unlike, the 7th layer.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So you're well into it. So what the fragments are, to be perfectly honest, this one is from a beard hair incident, right?
Oh, so funny.
And what I do is I have a viewfinder, right? And rather than just wad up and trash the entire print, I use my viewfinder. I find areas that are suitable, that I find acceptable. So I curate the uncuratable. and I salvage them from going into my recycle bin. I mean, I'm obsessive compulsive a little bit. I use these little strips to do my ink tests on. So I have ink test strips, right?
Yes.
So pretty much, if you can imagine byproduct from doing all of this, it pretty much gets used, which is, that's a goal, right? Do I hit it 100% of the time? No, but I do try.
Yeah, it's a conscious effort. And for me, what's fun too is it makes these pieces approachable as well. Mm-hmm. Because of course it's a one of one, you know what I mean? It's going to be priced as if it is a one of one. With these fragmented memories, they're more approachable, which is lovely. So we have some framed prints, and we sold one, which is so exciting. That'll be getting into the mail at the end of the show. But we also have an entire stack in gallery of really, really beautiful matted prints. And these are great because they're super approachable. They're gorgeous. They are the 8 or 6 or 5 color stereographs. And I just love that. It makes art approachable for people. And also, it's conscious as well as far as the making. And it might have an imperfection on the piece that you cut off, but not during these really beautiful vignettes. And it's really fun to see sort of maybe where that came from, a different colorway, a different screen. I just love the fragment idea. It's definitely what they are. Yeah, along that line, I'll come back to that really beautiful detail. We also have really, really gorgeous books that Mark has printed up. And they are, I love that it says it's from January through June of 2025. So these are more than hot off the presses. And they have a number of pieces that either are on view in the gallery or are pieces that Mark has made since the beginning of the year.
Those are wicked hard to photograph, by the way.
Yes, I can't even imagine trying to photograph them, because where the pieces that we have on view here at Seesaw Art they have a little bit of a different abstraction. These are very consistent in their teeny circles, is what I can say right now. So I can't imagine photographing those and trying to get the good representation. Obviously, I believe in seeing artwork in person. That's important to me. I run a gallery. But when I do see it every time in person myself, I am absolutely blown away. That is just how gorgeous they are. Yeah.
Shucks. Thank
Yeah,
you.
seriously. Let me see what I've got here. Okay, perfect. So I'm going to go back to here, and this is a detailed shot of one of the fragmented memories, and everybody can check them all out in the link that I've put in the chat. So, Mark, what's coming up next for you? Ideas-wise, show-wise? Are you going on vacation? Are you spending more time in the studio? Like, what's going on after this exhibition?
So once I sorted out my printer debacle that happened today, I have a large format printer that did not want to behave for me today, but I
It will
finally got that
tomorrow. It
sorted
will
out.
tomorrow.
Right? I printed out the transparencies for my next 4 prints, which actually are all hanging. They're the small
That's awesome.
ones up above behind me there.
Yeah.
Probably can't see them for heck, but they're up there. Those are my little proof prints. I said I was going to slow down on the thought experiments / iteration, right? I am with this. I think so. One of the things that I really love about the prints in the show, right, is the overall complexity, right?
Definitely.
And I think you and I talked about this at the opening. They don't really give you, a resting place visually.
Yes.
They
Yeah.
tug at you and they pull you around the canvas, and there's no real resting space. And so what I'm doing is I'm creating those resting spaces
I love that.
and incorporating them into the works. Predominantly, they are the texture and surface of the paper as opposed to color or whatnot. Although in the larger one under the 4, I did use large swaths of color to get there. One of the fun things about what I do, Amy and everyone, is that doing the same thing twice or 3 times, because it's very image dependent, right?
Yes.
And unless I'm just going to reuse the same 3 images forever and ever, I'm going to get different prints each time.
Yeah.
I can come close, right? But, unless I force it, right? So I'm making prints. I make anywhere from 3 to 5 prints at the same time, just because it takes that long for things to dry. But it only takes me, 15 minutes to pull a color or 20 minutes to pull 3 prints, right, of the same color and then clean up, right?
Yeah.
So I'll work on printing, physically pulling ink, for 2.5 hours and get my 5 first colors done, right? And then I'll build on that. But where I'm going with that, I just lost myself, Amy.
I have a question. You're good. I have a question though. So thinking about creating intentionally those resting places for the viewer, that's going to be a completely different compositional project.
It is. I actually think you have to think of the negative space.
Yes.
I'm going to jump up real quick and grab the little one. Okay.
I'm excited.
It's not going to take that long because it's a tiny space.
It's a tiny, efficient space, and I'm a fan of those.
Okay, so let's see. Can we see that?
Yep, definitely.
Right?
Yeah.
So
I love the paper being the texture.
Yes.
Instead of I'm just gonna instead of almost like the dots. I love the dots. Don't get me wrong, but I love the
This has the dots.
Yes.
I can't escape. You cannot escape the dots.
You can't escape the dots, but I just love that. I'm really excited to see those. Wow. Yeah.
And so one of the things in those very early ones that are in that book, right? Very earlier, right? Those are very limited in palette, right?
Yeah.
They're only, nope, I think they're all 3 color. especially the first several pages.
Mhm.
They're all 3 colors. And then I said, well, I've got this. Let's do 10 colors, right? Well,
Yes,
now I'm coming back to 3 colors.
love
Oh, but
that.
wait, there's the
Yeah.
paper there. That's my 4th
Yes.
color, right?
Yeah.
So taking advantage of that negative space to give us those resting spaces, etc. I really like what happens with the larger blocks of color, which
Yeah.
brings me to doing next. I actually have been sorting out the process in my mind about how, so these you could say are very photomechanical in a way,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Still very, no AI ever touches my images. So it's still all very hand, I have done them, right? But it's
Yes.
all very photomechanical. I am sorting out how I can actually transfer brushstrokes or
Mm.
hand drawn stuff to be part of the images as well. Maybe by
Yeah.
fall I'll be satisfied with where that has landed, but it's going to take a while
Yeah.
because yeah.
So something that's added once the print is finished, or something that's added like digitally and then is part of the screen set?
That is a darn good question. I'm not sure digitally. I am thinking more along the lines of either so that photo emulsion, they make that emulsion
Yeah.
that is not photo,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
It's called screen block, and there's also the reverse of screen block. And so I can use screen block and create the negative space, for example,
Yes.
right
Yeah.
on the screen. Okay,
Yeah.
so maybe, I don't know.
Oh, I love that idea.
I take one of
Yes.
my screens as part of, say, even this image, right?
Yes.
And I use screen block on one of those screens to alter the image itself. Or I use black India ink on the transparency film,
Oh,
and
cool.
I
Yes.
burn a screen that way. I'm experimenting. I'm not
Yeah.
sure exactly where it's going to take me, but I really like the idea.
Yes. Yeah. And having that, like having your hand in it in a different way.
In a different way, exactly. I mean, I still get to have all the fun because
Yes.
eventually it gets onto a screen and I'm putting ink to paper,
Yes.
which honestly, that's just pure magic to me. You know,
Definitely.
when you push that ink or pull that ink through that screen and you lift it up and you go, wow, you know,
Yes.
I can't believe that worked.
True. There definitely is that magic. I had the lovely pleasure of pulling a screen with Mark when I was at a studio visit with him earlier in this spring, and it was there. The magic was there. We got to get a little messy and test out an ink, and I know that drawing is part of your history too. So it'll be really fun to be able to bring that back and have something. It's funny because this work, whether or not your source images are organic moving forward into this next project or not, like you'll just be adding more of a fingerprint and a more organic feeling to that and making them even that much more painterly. And I know that these are paintings and you want to have that as an important part of the work. I love that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So basically being in the studio, that's probably number one on the list. There are some shows, I keep my eye on the what's happening,
Yes.
right? And there's some shows coming up. I'll probably I'm not I'm going to throw 5 pieces at this and see what sticks. I love the act of self curation, right? So I'll
Yeah.
probably pick 1 or 2 for each show, and I have a limited quantity anyway, right? So
Yeah.
makes sense,
Yeah.
and you see what happens. I just let's see. Well, we just picked up pieces from the Sunapee livery show, Naturally New England, uh,
Nice. Yes.
yesterday. So that is over. I think we're picking up The Center for the Arts in New London has a gallery space, and I have a set of three fragments. Right.
Oh, cool.
Again, we did not collaborate on that. I was so pleasantly surprised. It was such a cool thing. But anyway, so I got those, and then of course there's the seesaw. So I don't know. I might take a brief hiatus, from shows for a tiny bit, or I may not. It depends if how these next four come out. I'll probably, given how I print, I'll probably have them done by like Monday.
There you go.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
no, it's Wednesday now. I'm going to say Tuesday.
So looking for shows is part of your process, just to make sure if there's anything relevant that you can be submitting to or any opportunities, you're sort of always looking for that.
Absolutely, absolutely. And there's also social media. You see something like I'm on Instagram and I have a website, and you can just email me. Always happy to talk with folks. And you can see what I'm doing, right? And something piques your interest, just reach out. We can have a conversation, right?
Yes, as everybody can tell, Mark is so lovely to chat with. I feel like I could chat with you and have for very long, very long segments. Your work is also so complicated, so it sort of like all fits together really well. So my last clincher question here is, it's tough to stay engaged sometimes. It's difficult to keep showing up, and of course you give yourself a break, but overall, and especially where now that you have the time after you've had so many years of thinking like, okay, what would I want to do if I had the time? What keeps you coming back, and like what sort of fills your cup creatively or community wise to keep showing up for your art?
Well, so, and I don't know if this is just inspirational or what helps me show. I have such a huge backlog of stuff, right?
Yeah.
Going on out here that so we're going to put that on the plus side.
Yes.
Okay.
It's not overwhelming at all.
Not overwhelming at all. I can always say no.
That's true.
I'm not going to do that. Sorry. Self-curation. Nope. Moving on from that one. Okay. We talked a little. In fact, I think I used the word. This entire endeavor, process, everything is just, it is magical. The act of creating something, right, is just magical. And the thing is I think that people do it without even realizing it, and so but when you're doing it like this, you're in the trenches with it, and you can't help but go, oh, wow, I made that.
Yes.
And pulling that ink, I mentioned that, right? You pull that ink and you've done all of these things to get to that one point, right? And you pull the ink and it's the last color, right? And you go, I wonder if I did that in blue, if that'd be what. No, hey, you just go, that was awesome.
Yes.
And the entire process is like so, at least in printmaking. And I think, I've done painting before and it's similar. There's just a meditative, life affirming thing that happens, right? And I'm an old guy. I keep coming back for more of that, right?
Definitely.
And yeah, there's life there, and it's really, really good.
I love that. Definitely. Yeah, that meditative studio sort of mindset where you kind of lose time and you're like, oh my goodness, I was here all afternoon. But then also the fact that you are in the studio all afternoon, like it's kind of like it feeds itself that there is, you know, the time to create and you are doing it. And I think that that is part of the magical aspect of it too. I love that.
Absolutely. And that loss in time, you know, I used to program, right? And I'd be working on something, creating, I might add.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
you're doing that, and you look up at the clock and it's like 3 a.m, right? And it's because you've had all of this energy, right? I mean, and I'll be honest, I was working over the last, 4 evenings. I've stayed up way past my bedtime because I didn't realize how late it was getting while I was working on these images, right? And it's just, it's that there's an energy that a person can tap into. And I hope that comes through in the work, right?
Yes, it definitely does. Yeah, yeah.
Me.
To me, it definitely does, and it kind of almost has this. I really love the idea of limitless, and like I know it's not applicable in a lot of things, but I feel like there's just this sort of limitless energy in the layers. When looking at your work, it's something that I would look at every day for the rest of my life and still see something new, or just appreciate how the screen was set, you know. And then that comes back to it came out of an afternoon or a morning printing in the studio, and it's like a really beautiful representation of time in that 14 or so days that sometimes it takes to make a print. Yeah, it's really, really beautiful. That's lovely. I love that. I'm going to remember the magic. I asked that question because it's fun to see what keeps people coming back, but there's these really beautiful kernels that come through. This has been lovely. I want to say thank you to everybody who joined us tonight and spending their lovely July evening with us. You can check out everything at seesaw.gallery, and the exhibition is up for one more weekend. I'll be here Friday, Saturday, and Sunday of this weekend at the gallery, and I have plenty of time to come down for an appointment, so check out seesaw.gallery/visit, and you can see what the available open hours and appointment times are. And yeah, just want to say again that I'm Amy Regan from Seesaw Art. We're an independently run gallery here in Manchester, New Hampshire, working on mostly invitational, sometimes open call. I do have an open call right now, which is going to be extended to be due on Sunday, so don't get freaked out when you see Friday. A lovely community-based exhibition that will be happening this August to see your work in the gallery and to meet some new friends and help each other keep showing up. So thank you so much, Mark. It's been lovely chatting with you.
It has been wonderful. Nothing short of. Thank you so much, Amy.
My pleasure. Excellent. Well, everybody have a great night, and we'll see you soon. Bye.